people strategy to their business strategy. Our goal is to support you as you rise to the challenges of complex decision making centered around attracting and retaining top talent.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Strategic Alignment podcast. I'm super excited to be with you another show. I'm just so privileged to have with me Dr. Benita David, and I will be talking about something that I think that everybody can align themselves with. That's authentic leadership. But before I say anything about Dr. David, I'll give her an opportunity in her elevator pitch style just to tell us a little bit about herself, so that we can get acquainted as she'll be giving us some nuggets to not just take us through the week, but to lead from an authentic place. Dr. David, the floor is yours.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. So a little bit about me. I think first and foremost, I see myself as a teacher, whether that's with students or with executives, physicians, also do a lot of coaching. What I've studied is sciences and business and leadership. And so both of those backgrounds in science and in business brought me to healthcare administration. And so that's currently what I do, developing leaders for healthcare.
Wow, that sounds good. And while you guys are watching live, I just say at this point, we talk about authentic leadership. So if you want to share with a few friends and drop a few comments, if you have some comments, we have Dr. David with us, and we're talking about authentic leadership. And we talk about exactly how do you operate in a space while being authentic. Many times when we hear about being authentic, the first thing you're like, if I really show my true colors, I may end up losing the job. If I really show my true colors, then nobody will sit with me when I'm having lunch. If I show my true colors, I will not pass the first stage in the interview. So today we'll be having a few questions, having some conversations. And please feel free to ask your questions, drop a nugget or two, and share with a friend so that they could get some of the nuggets that we shared today. But Dr. David, my first question is, why is it important for leaders? And I know this may be a tough one, because when we hear about leaders, we think about people who are walking and they're all stoic, they're firm, straight-faced and everything. My first question is, why is it important for leaders to be transparent and authentic? Why is it so important for that to happen?
Yeah, it's really to build trust, right? So if you're not yourself, then people don't know who you are. But that authenticity leaks out sometimes, and they get glimpses. And if you're not that all of the time, they're going to wonder who you are. And then they're not going to trust you. And so if you're authentic, who you are all of the time, then that allows people to trust who you are and the things that you say. I think that's really the importance of it, because you are who you are everywhere you go. We have this misnomer of being the work person and then the home person, but there's crossover. We're just the one person. And it's less work, right? Being authentic is less work. It's more of a struggle to hide who you really are. Why not make it easy?
And as you said something there that just grabbed my attention, is that about trust. And what role does trust play in terms of getting the most of those who you work with? Because as you said, when you're authentic, people tend to trust who you are. And then what happens when we have greater trust happening in the workplace, especially you leading a team?
Yeah, you're building relationships. You have more productivity because you have that trust factor. It also, authenticity shows your vulnerability, and it invites other people to be vulnerable and authentic too. I think that's probably the biggest key, is that invitation, because then you can have a better work environment and relationship building.
So I'm hearing you just say then, Dr. David, that when a leader is transparent or when a leader is authentic, they end up pulling others to be in that very same position. And how does that work in terms of unlocking some of the gifts or talents that others may have in the team as a result of you being authentic in your own space?
Yeah, I think you find out more about people. So if you don't share who you are, Jamie, all of who you are, like you see on the screen, you're an author, a speaker, and a coach. If you hide that aspect of who you are in your other job, then we don't know what all your capabilities are and how your talents could be used, because you're just this online and you're not that in your day job. So we would lose out on all of the things that you could provide wherever you are if we don't know, if you're not authentic, or if we don't allow you to be every part of who you are.
You know what, Dr. David, you said something there, and I think that is very important, in that sometimes because leaders are not authentic, as a result of them not being authentic, then you have other members of the team who are not authentic. And then we end up missing out on certain results because nothing is unlocked. I'm just showing one side of who I am because I believe that that's what should happen. But should you just be authentic around everybody? Should you just walk around in the office space and just like, okay, this is who I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly about myself? How do you speak to that as a leader, as one who has journeyed through the path, and I'm almost certain you've worked with leaders who are not quite authentic in the way they do things. So what do you say to people who may say that being authentic may just be oversharing, and it may end up negatively impacting your trajectory?
Yeah, so I think I've grown in this space. I'm someone who thought, hey, I'm just going to come. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. I'm also in trouble a lot. So I think you have to learn and grow and understand what that means. So I think at some point in my life, I've been called brutally honest. Well, I can be honest without the brutal part, you know? So that would be a way in which I'm authentic. I can be authentic without being brutal. I can just be honest. And so I can be upfront about what something is, or how it's affecting me, or how it's affecting the business. I think we just have to learn what authenticity really means. It doesn't mean now you can be mean. Now you can do whatever you want. Now you can do all of these negative things. You can do the thing that you need to do, or say the thing that you need to say in an appropriate way, in an appropriate context, in the appropriate setting. So I think authenticity is it's not permission to do whatever you want and be everything that you want to be at every single moment. It's being professional. You still have to be professional in a professional setting. You don't get to say whatever's on your mind. You still have to learn. I'm still learning tact.
So what I'm hearing is that you have to use some, while being authentic, you have to also understand the environment that you're in. And authentic doesn't mean that you're just going to be everything about yourself, because we're not perfect beings. There's certain sides of us that we should work on not showcasing. It's not worthwhile advertising those areas. And as leaders, we have to operate in a professional sense. We also said something that when we're authentic, we pull others in. And by pulling others in, and others are now authentic, it allows you to sometimes see in others what you would not have normally seen on their resume, or what you'd have seen in an interview. How, based on your experience as a leader who believes in being authentic, how has that benefited you in terms of assisting others in becoming their best self, because they have chosen to be professionally authentic in your space?
Yeah, I think it's really discovering what people's passions are and who they are as whole people. So for instance, even still in some settings, there are women who can't say my kids, or because, I have, my kids are sick, or because, my kids need me in a specific space. You just don't bring that up in some settings. I think we're learning more and more that I'm not going to get the best out of you as a mom if I don't consider the fact that you have children and have these conflicting priorities sometimes, right? So you have to understand who you're working with and your team and their needs and who they are all around as whole people. And once you are supporting the person and caring about the person as their whole self, you're really going to get the most and understand the most out of them. They're not going to want to leave. Like, if you're going to support who they are and their priorities, you're going to get more out of them than if you said, don't mention your children. That's not part of your work experience here.
Wow. And what I'm hearing also, Dr. David, is that by being authentic, it allows for changes to occur in the work setting. Because, for example, you just made mention there, as we talk about equity and equality, as we talk about justice in the workforce or stuff like that, when we fail to be authentic about who we are, then we rob others of an opportunity and a space to be authentic. And then because they're not authentic, you will not be able to recognize what their needs are. And sometimes there are changes that could be made in the workplace, on the team, but because you are not being authentic, they're not being authentic. And as a result, the results suffer because of that. So I don't know if you want to shed some light in terms of how important it is when you're being authentic, how it allows the work environment to blossom and how that impacts results in the long run.
So as a leader, you have the opportunity to make changes, right? So if it wasn't that way, there's two different ways of dealing with it. As a leader, you can say, it wasn't easy for me. I had to hide the fact that I was a mom, that I had children. I had to go about it the difficult way. And look, I still made it here in this space. And so that's the way it's going to be for everybody. Or you can make a change because now you're in a position of leadership. And you can say, you know what, I'm not going to allow people on my team to have the same struggles that I had, because I can be different as a leader. I can say, you know what, I have to go pick up my kid today, or I'm unable to come to work today because my kid is sick, or I have to go pick him up from school, or I need to go to a school performance. Well, that invites my team to talk to me about their kids and their struggles, and invites them to prioritize their children. I need to go early today because I'm going to go attend my child's performance. So I think as a leader, you being authentic allows your team to share about their lives and prioritize differently, or see a different way of being, and hopefully pass that on, because you are hopefully developing other people to be leaders too and make changes in their spaces as well.
And what I'm getting from that too, when you're authentic, and when your team members recognize that you're authentic, and you allow them a space where they could be authentic, what happens is that they're now willing to go the extra mile to support your agenda. So you now get what we call the discretionary value from your teammates, because your teammates now, like, she or he, they're real people. They have real challenges, and I have real challenges, and I can be authentic about my real challenges. And because Dr. Benita is going the extra mile as a leader in my space to allow me to be authentic, then I'm going to go the extra mile in this space to ensure that the goals and the vision that she has will be achieved. I see Justin Haldane said that while being authentic, we need to be tactful. And I think Dr. Benita, you said something about that earlier. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'm still working on it.
So that's true, because not everybody, and I normally use this term, I call it balanced vulnerability, whereby you share enough in a balanced way whereby it does not offend anybody, but at the same time, it speaks the truth to what is happening, and it allows others to think about how they're doing things, how they're being perceived, and how they can operate in a better way to impact the environment positively when it comes down to team. There's something that you said, Dr. David, too, and I'd like for you to speak to it as someone who in leadership in the healthcare sector. How do you find that when leaders are authentic, how does that impact the culture in the workspace?
Yeah, positively is one word. It allows a healthy culture, one that there's sharing, and also pushback, feedback. You're able to talk about what's really going on, and you know that you have a relationship with your team, and they have a relationship with you as a leader to share what it is that's on their mind. You don't want people who say, well, there are people who want yes men all, everywhere. But the best teams have people who, feel differently or have a different point of view. And that's what you want. You want people to be able to share their ideas and their, if they're in conflict with you, or if they have another way of thinking about things, to be able to share that too, because you're inviting that into your space.
And you use that trigger word, Dr. David, and I have to jump on that word, and that's feedback. Sure. So an authentic leader, should they be the only ones who are giving feedback, or should they put themselves in a position where they could also receive feedback from those who they're working with? And if that's the case, how does that support their overall growth and development?
Yeah, so feedback is a gift, regardless of what the feedback is. So you providing feedback to someone is a gift that you're giving them. You only give feedback to people that you actually care about. If you didn't care about somebody, you're just gonna be like, all right, listening, moving on. But if you care, you're going to give that person feedback so that they can either improve or feel more confident about the way that they've done something. In the same way, if I, as a leader, don't invite feedback, I'm losing out on opportunities to grow or to know what I'm good at. Maybe, maybe someone will say to me, well, you did that really well. And I was like, that is not what I want to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm getting feedback that I am good at it and I didn't know. So it's important for you to get feedback so you can make changes, so you can grow. And the same thing for giving the feedback. You want to give that opportunity to someone else to show that you care also. But you have to develop relationships. I'm not going to tell you, Jamie, if I never knew you. You know what, Jamie? I don't think it was a good idea for you to cover that topic. Because why would you listen to me? You don't know anything about me. But if we had developed a relationship where you trust me, you know me to be authentic, you know that I care, then you're more likely to listen to me and hear and internalize that feedback.
Wow. Dr. David, you just hit a pressure point here. So let me see if I could break this down. So you're saying that what I'm hearing you to say is that most leaders struggle to grow their organization and to receive the results that they need because they fail to either receive feedback and to grow from it. And so they end up remaining in that very same position. And as a result, they are without the support of their team. So what would you say to a leader? What advice would you give to a leader at this point who think that, getting feedback from others is really has more to do with them challenging their authority, challenging their position? What word of advice would you have for a leader or persons or emerging leaders who struggle with accepting feedback and consider feedback to be a rude thing unless asked for?
Yeah, I'd say that you're missing out. You're missing out. If you have a problem with, you need to figure out why you're insecure. First of all, if someone's feedback makes you feel like they're being challenging and threatening to your authority, I think you have a problem. So I think if that's the way that you're feeling about it, then invite the feedback if you can hear it better that way. Now, if you're new to a particular team or to a particular organization in a leadership role, I would say that it's important for you to invite feedback so that others feel safe giving it to you. And maybe don't say, so what feedback do you have for me? Ask very specific questions about what it is that you want to get from them, what type of feedback you're looking for, so that you can open up that dialogue. And then people will feel more comfortable giving that feedback to you. And then once you develop that relationship, then hopefully there's that back and forth and that trust and vulnerability that you've developed in that team. But going in, ask for that feedback, invite the feedback.
I like that. So going in by inviting the feedback and by being vulnerable, knowing that you're not perfect, give them an opportunity to ask questions, to share what they're seeing, and that will build relationship. And I think that goes back to what you shared earlier. Also build a level of trust. And as a result, you find that they will begin to start sharing with you because they find it easy. You are the one welcoming the feedback on. And you're also saying that be more specific when you're new to a team in terms of asking for feedback, because you don't want to receive that which you don't need at that point. And should you, how should a leader go about that? Should they just ask for open-ended questions, or should they say, guess what? How would you coin that? How would you phrase that for a leader who's seeking feedback and they're new to a team?
Yeah, so I think you could set up some parameters, because you don't necessarily, it really depends on the situation, right? You don't want your team contradicting you in a setting where there's other teams involved, right? If it's an internal meeting, welcome all of the feedback, whatever it is, at any time. But in a larger setting where there's multiple teams, you want to have a time and space for that, but let the people know, your team know, this is when we say whatever we want. when you're in a bit larger setting, when there's multiple teams, we need to go in a united front, right? So there's different settings in which you invite feedback and the type of feedback that you are inviting. I would say the other thing is, if you're not getting feedback and everyone's like, yes, yes, everything is great, assign a contrarian. And so that is that person's job to give another point of view. And then if people take turns doing that, that's a way to open up the culture and get some more feedback.
Beautiful. While we're talking before we started the interview, I think we talked about what role does reflection play in a leader's journey in terms of moving towards a place of being authentic. So there may be persons who are listening to us and they know off the bat that they're not authentic in terms of how they're operating in their workspace as leaders for whatever reason. What role does reflection play in a leader becoming that authentic, finding themselves in that authentic place, moving forward so they could impact their team? If you could unpack that for us.
Yeah, so I think reflection is very important, especially if something has hit you and you cannot get it out of your head. So let's say someone gave me feedback and said that was the wrong decision. And I am offended that they think that it's a wrong decision because I have spent so much time and I have looked at all of the research. I think it's important for me at that point to reflect on another point of view and be grateful that someone is giving me feedback. They have taken the time to give me that feedback. And why does that feel personal to me today that they said that I was wrong? Why am I not seeing the other side? Why do I feel attacked? I think it's important to reflect on all of those things so that you can internalize the feedback, figure it out, understand why you're feeling the way that you're feeling without being defensive. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important, just like sleep is, where you're trying to figure things out and maybe you dream about something and you work it out. Giving time to pause and reflect, I think, helps you sort things out.
Wow. So pausing, taking a pause, hitting that pause button, reflecting and stuff like that helps. And I see Ann Thompson said here that leaders who fear feedback are insecure. He spoke about that earlier, about the insecurity. I don't know if you want to, and Justin Halliday said, it's very important to get feedback, even when it makes you uncomfortable. That helps with the growth process. Dr. David, I could not pass those two feedback that we've gotten from the audience without asking you. You may not, I know you can't call names, but if you have had experiences like these, whether with yourself or others, and how did you unpack that that allowed your team or yourself to grow from this experience?
I think when I was new in leadership, feedback it didn't feel good. It felt like it was a personal attack. But I think as I've grown, I realized what a gift it is. And it's an opportunity for me to see things differently. And I love to hear different perspectives and see another point of view. I think I'm pretty, once my mind is made up, I'm like, all right, that's it. But it's very exciting to me also if someone can change my mind. Because then they have given me enough information and I've had an open mind to consider another perspective. But it's hard. It's hard sometimes. And I think the more stressed I am, the harder it is to get feedback, because then I feel like I'm in a defensive mode because I'm stressed out. And so I'm not hearing as well. And it feels like a personal attack. So that's something that in my own reflection would say, why are you feeling that way? Oh, you're stressed. You need to relax for a minute and then hear it differently. But that's what we need to understand about other people too. We need to give them that space also to reflect. Not like, hey, Jamie, you did that wrong and now go fix it. You need to process too. Here's my feedback, Jamie. Let's talk about it tomorrow.
Wow. And as you said that in terms of, being authentic, being genuine and also following through with feedback and reflecting, it helps you to not only see what you're going through, but it allows you to understand that there are others who may be going through similar experiences. And now you got to say to yourself that, you know what, how do I deal with this person? Because I've also had these experiences when it comes down to getting feedback and being in an authentic space, because being in an authentic space means that people are going to be real with you. And not because they're being real or authentic doesn't mean that it's going to be like a cakewalk. It may be difficult to digest the facts that you're getting when they share with you exactly what they're seeing from what you're doing in your leadership role or whatever capacity you're serving in.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I tell my students is, as long as you're hearing from me, regardless of what it is you're hearing from me, that's a good sign. Because the minute I go quiet, that means that I'm like, all right, I'm done. So if I am tough, I am going to give you the feedback. I am going to make this better. Take it, understand it, reflect on it. And then, because people want to complain, like, you're being so hard, that's unreasonable. There are people that I don't talk to. Those are the people that need to be concerned, because you're like, feedback is a gift. Maybe I don't want to give any gifts.
So you're saying, Dr. David, when you go quiet, it's like Santa Claus is gone, no more gifts. You gotta wait.
Right. Yeah.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Thank you very much, Dr. David, for sharing with us another Strategic Alignment podcast. But before I have Dr. David give us a closing remarks, I just want to share with you guys, if you haven't gotten a copy of that book yet, The Face of Leadership, you need to run over to Amazon and copy yourself a copy of The Face of Leadership. And it's a powerful read in terms of dealing with some of the things that we've spoken about today. It has to do with failure, foresight, awareness, agility, clarity, confidence, energy, and execution. And as leaders, whether you're emerging leaders or you're a seasoned leader and you're struggling to be authentic, accepting your failures and giving the feedback that is needed in your space to grow your team and to grow yourself, because leadership is about leading up, leading down, leading across, and most importantly, Dr. David, leading yourself. And you have to be authentic to take yourself to that space. But Dr. David, I know we didn't get a chance to cover all the questions, but I don't know if you have any final points that you want to share with those who are watching or those who have been watching the rebroadcast or delayed broadcast. Is there anything that you like to share with those who are watching about authentic leadership as we look to close the show out?
I'd say be kind to yourself and to others, and understand that leadership is a journey. You will always be growing on that journey, and to give yourself the kindness to go through it.
Okay, wow. And Dr. David, where can they find Dr. David? I know people will be wanting to know, where can they find you? What do you have to share about where they can locate you?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is probably the easiest space to find me. So please go to LinkedIn and reach out.
LinkedIn and reach out. And Dr. David, again, thank you very much for sharing another Strategic Alignment podcast. And we believe in inspiring growth and helping others in terms of achieving their best self. And today we talked about being authentic, being that authentic leader. And while you may not be leading a major team, leadership is not just about leading a team, it's about leading yourself. And we talked about it earlier. If you're not authentic, you may end up find yourself in a space that you don't want to be, but because you fail to be authentic, you're remaining in that space. So thank you guys very much again for joining us for another Strategic Alignment podcast. And we're happy that you could join us. Please follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook in different spaces. And don't forget, get yourself a copy of The Face of Leadership. You'll enjoy the read. And leave a post, a kind comment as we seek to push this thing forward. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Strategic Alignment Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe to our podcast by visiting our website at www.pottingerandassociatesconsulting.com.